So let's think about this. You're in a room with your doctor. The door's closed. You're discussing a treatment that might save your life, or at least change it for the better. You think that that conversation is private. You think that the law protects your doctor's right to treat you. That's not true in 2026 anymore. This privacy now depends entirely on which drug is on the prescription pad. I'm Darshan Kulkarni. This is Darshan Talks. Today we're pulling back the curtain on a massive legal double standard, one that's turning the FDA into a political weapon. Before we start, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so you never miss a deep dive into this intersection of law and life sciences. Let's talk about duplicity. Remember 2021, the height of the Ivermectin craze. Lawmakers were shouting from the rooftops. They were discussing the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship. They argued that the FDA had no business telling a doctor that they couldn't prescribe an approved drug for an off-label use, in this case COVID-19. They even sued and won a major victory in the Fifth Circuit. They claimed that the FDA was overstepping its authority by interfering in the practice of medicine. In this case, the case of Ivermectin, the data was at best terrible. Nevertheless, the fact remains that that is a choice a physician and a patient can make. The message was clear. The government stays out of the exam room. Let's be clear. They were right. Now it's 2026, and that sanctity has evaporated. When the drug is mifepristone for an abortion or hormones for gender-affirming care, we know that in both these cases they work. The practice of medicine defense has vanished. Instead of protecting your privacy, we're seeing the DOJ and attorney generals use this intended use rule as a new high-tech surveillance tool. And that's where it gets dangerous. The DOJ's recent April 2025 memorandum is a game changer. They're now saying that if a drug is used for gender transition, even if it's an off-label use of a perfectly legal hormone, the manufacturer and the doctor can both be investigated for misbranding.
Enjoying our content? We'd love to hear more. Please like, comment, share, and find more.
Why? Why? Because they claim that the intent of the use makes it a new drug that has not been approved. And they aren't stopping at the pharmacy counter. We've seen the administration take zero action to defend privacy regulations. They're allowing states to subpoena the private medical records of patients who travel across state lines for care. Wait. What happened to this whole decision between the patient and the doctor? For ivermectin, this was a fundamental right to try an unproven treatment. In this case, we know it works. But it's a regulatory violation that warrants a federal investigation and a breach of patient records. If you're in the life sciences, this duplicity is a legal minefield. We're moving towards a world where the FDA's enforcement priorities are not dictated by clinical data, but by the poison pill provisions in the latest appropriations bill. Now, let me be clear. I've always known the FDA is a political organization. There is definitely a certain amount of politics that happens. I've interviewed Rob Califf. He admits that that's a thing. The question is, those political decisions have usually been contained to the concept of approvals. We've never seen regulatory action occur, at least not that I'm aware of, occur where you're fundamentally targeting both manufacturers and physicians for taking things and doing things that were within the actual practice of medicine. Here's your problem. When the law treats the same action, off-label prescribing in this case, as a protected freedom one day and a criminal action the next, the industry loses its North Star. So we're watching the slow death of medical privacy, and I'm not even sure how slow it is, in the name of regulatory intent. This isn't just about healthcare. It's about precedent. And we're setting this precedent for every drug in the market. If you want to keep your company and your patients protected, you need to stay ahead of these shifts. If you'd like me to do a deeper dive into specific intended use evidence, as the DOJ is now using it to target and trigger audits, reach out now. Until then, remember, the law is only as good as its last application. Call, click, or email.